the heavens. Mankind has always been drawn to their power. Part of our fascination lies in the strange sights that have been seen in the skies since the beginning of time. Reports of unidentified flying objects have come from all over the globe, but mainstream science has largely dismissed them as unsubstantiated claims about unverifiable phenomena. Yet new sightings only fuel our interest in the possibility of visitations by alien life and our desire to make contact with other worlds. The beautiful San Luis Valley of southern Colorado is an area known for its New Age beliefs, old-fashioned individualism, and Native American legends. Nestled against the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the valley attracts paranormal and UFO researchers. Sightings of flying saucers have been part of local lore for the past century. Nearby, the Cheyenne Mountain Air Base conducts maneuvers, many under a cloak of secrecy. Some residents of this valley, like Jim Roberts, exchange stories of their sightings.
We're talking about something that looks like a moon when there is no full moon, and I've never seen him really any higher than just below the tip of the mountain, the top of the mountain peaks. Sometimes you'll see like two car lights, and all of a sudden they'll flip-flop, one will be on top of the other. They just take off at enormous speed and are gone.
Jimmy Lloyd is a retired Air Force colonel. He claims to have seen a huge craft over the San Luis Valley in January 1994.
It was a clear day in the afternoon, and I was traveling down this road, and this object appeared in the windshield of my car, headed right toward the Oak Creek grade in a descending direction, went through that gap, and these bright arc green lights were in array like a horseshoe in reverse, and it was moving at a speed well in excess of 20,000 miles an hour, and no sound, absolutely no sound.
The very same day, the Cheyenne Mountain Air Base reported that its satellite had picked up a flare on radar. The location of the flare and the direction of the craft Jimmy Lloyd says he witnessed intersect in the heart of the valley. Sightings like these in this area are often ignored as myth and exaggeration. One man actually captured his sighting on tape, Tim Edwards. Edwards' family owns a popular restaurant in Salida, Colorado. Like many residents, he had heard rumors of sightings. On the morning of August 27, 1995, Edwards had one of his own.
My daughter Brandy and I just had got done eating breakfast and walked outside to check on the progress of two construction workers. And we're standing there probably about a minute or so. Brandy says, Daddy, there's something up in the sky.
I said, Dad, no, there's something up in the sky. He says, stop, leave me alone. He looked up and he saw it.
Tim grabbed his video camera and taped the event for 6 minutes. You are watching what he claims is actual footage of a UFO.
Yeah, a spaceship grow bigger like that. Huh?
It probably moved 100 miles in a matter of a second or two.
We were in an extreme awe. It was just like we were kind of like just petrified, just paralyzed, you know.
See that now?
You know, what is this thing? Brandy asked me, you know, what is it, Dad? I said, this is a spaceship from another world.
For 20 minutes, father and daughter watched the amazing sight, believing that the object in the sky was aware of their presence.
No kind of aircraft, I'll tell you that. Oh, no.
Overwhelming feelings came over me. It almost looked like we were looking into a transparent cloud or something, into another space or dimension. The light wasn't radiating from it. It wasn't reflecting sunlight. It was like its own energy.
Tim and Brandy Edwards weren't the only ones to see a strange object in the sky. Some residents of the area reported to have seen a UFO over Salida around the time that Edwards says he did. But for Tim Edwards, this wasn't just a sighting. It was a religious experience, a close encounter with another world.
My family had a hard time understanding my feelings, like an electrical charge going through my whole body, but especially my mind, all these profound feelings.
UFO believers, reporters, and the curious descended on the rural community, hoping for a repeat performance. Local reporter Arlene Schovold did some digging through local archives and found a history of sightings in this area stretching back to World War I.
In looking through the old newspapers here at the Mountain Mail, I saw a reference to a mysterious airship. The 1917 sighting quoted all of these credible people as having seen this thing, cigar-shaped thing in the sky, and it was seen in the same location as where Tim Edwards saw his, and the description was just exactly like the thing he saw.
Before the sighting, Edwards had no interest in UFOs or extraterrestrials. Now he was convinced that aliens had chosen him to spread their message.
The spiritualism of the whole event, basically, kind of like it put me on a mission to get my word out to the world, or the events in Salida, what happened that day. It was almost like pretty much an obsession at times.
I think Tim was obsessed with it at first, too. I'd say it was the highlight of his life. He's a person who saw an unusual thing, and he was, fortunately, I think, open enough to talk about it and film it. That was the main thing, that he got that on video, so he's not discredited.
I get feedback, that people, talk behind your back, and a lot of people, I think, at first probably thought I was crazy, and they were laughing at first. But when I came forward, virtually hundreds of witnesses came forward. The local newspaper did 23 articles on the UFO activity, editorials, what the heck's going on.
Edwards felt compelled to tell everyone what he had witnessed. For months, he relived the event over and over, but his obsession was soon getting in the way of the family restaurant. Then he came up with a new solution. He opened a new restaurant and called it E.T.'s Landing.
I feel through my research that, with everything going on, it just is, like, say, the escalation of UFO activity, the mass sightings, the religious and medical miracles, the way the world, the direction we're heading, everything is coming together like something is gonna pop.
Edward soon discovered that there was a price to pay for his newfound fame. What at first felt like a blessing has at times become an overwhelming burden for Tim, his wife, and his family.
My dad's life really changed. My dad every time talk about UFOs every day, and I don't. It's like, talk about different stuff.
I'm not obsessed with the mission anymore. No, I've substantially backed off. It's like my feelings aren't near as strong as they were a year ago. It was just like it totally engulfed my whole life.
Tim Edwards still pursues his mission, spreading the gospel of so-called ufology. He conducts school presentations, gives speeches, and between courses, tells his story to diners at the restaurant.
The people in Salida have been very supportive, and they come to me a lot of times wanting answers and to talk about their sightings. They feel they can confide in me and trust me.
Edwards' video has attracted UFO believers from around the world, and in their hunt for answers, they've uncovered another disturbing phenomenon in the San Luis Valley. The San Luis Valley of Colorado is a hotspot of UFO sightings. The area has also been linked to a series of mysterious and disturbing animal deaths over the past 30 years. On the morning of August 27th, 1995, Tim Edwards videotaped an unidentified flying object over Salida, Colorado. His was the latest in a long history of such unexplained events in the valley.
About a year after.
Since 1995, UFO investigators have tried to uncover why the valley seems to attract such bizarre aerial phenomena.
The footage that I saw that was shot by Tim Edwards was absolutely fabulous. Beyond description, really. It was truly an unidentified flying object.
Ken Storch is a Denver area police officer and part-time UFO investigator. After seeing Tim Edwards' video, Storch visited Salida. He was struck by the effect the sighting had had on Edwards.
It seems like anybody that has a real interaction with the phenomena, like a UFO, there seems to be a profound change in their personality.
After Edwards went public with his video, sightings increased in the San Luis Valley, reaching a peak in 1998. It was then that Ken Storch returned to mount an unusual UFO research project. He brought an expedition into the valley in hopes of collecting data and evidence.
In our group, we have an archaeologist, we have a theologist, a PhD, we have a retired police officer, we have a college student, we have a very diverse group of individuals that brought a lot of things to the table and a lot of perspectives that help us to gather this information and this data.
Members of the team were chosen after responding to an ad Storch had placed in a Denver newspaper. Their reasons for joining the expedition differed as much as their backgrounds.
I'm hoping that we can get enough exposure to get somebody to fund us for a solid year to go into the field to the hot spots.
I have a natural curiosity about the phenomena that we're attempting to observe. And we're trying to get organized information. We have crews out at different times. And I feel comfortable with that. I think it's a better way of getting at the type of information we're trying to get at.
Some members took shifts, scanning the skies. Others collected testimony from witnesses who reported seeing a craft similar to the one Tim Edwards videotaped. Sighting logs were compiled to look for patterns in UFO incidents. Other than some strange lights in the sky, the team came up with no evidence of UFOs. When the expedition ended a week later, Storch shared his findings with a local UFO investigator and author, Chris O'Brien.
I originally got involved in full-time investigating when there was so much activity here in the San Luis Valley that I just couldn't believe that there was nobody running around interviewing folks, trying to document the reports that have been filed. I've seen red orbs, orange orbs, big, huge green fireballs, little tiny 12-foot hybrid saucer-type jet ships, like something out of the Jetsons is the only way I can describe it. The variety and intensity of unusual phenomenon reported here is unrivaled anywhere.
It lasted about 12 minutes.
Storch and O'Brien have recorded hundreds of testimonials concerning sightings in the valley. But Tim Edwards' video remains the most controversial piece of evidence to date.
Tim Edwards' footage that he captured in late August 1995 is among the most impressive daylight videos of a UFO-type object I personally have ever seen. We were able to find witnesses around the state who saw something very similar that same day, and it's hard not to make the leap that everybody saw the same craft. To my knowledge, no one has yet adequately explained it.
While the investigators found no physical evidence of UFOs, their research did uncover a dark legacy of bizarre animal mutilations that most locals refuse to talk about. For the past 30 years, deer, horses, and cows have been found butchered in a way that defies logic and reason. Their body cavities are carved out with delicate precision, and no blood is found at the site.
Okay, it's Monday, October 24th. This animal was taken 25 days ago. There's unusual cookie cutter incisions. The side of the face looks like it was burnt. We see obvious cookie cutter incisions. I mean, phenomenal. Go ahead, tell me the coyotes did that. This animal appears to have been cookie cutter in size all the way from the chin, all the way down the belly to the rear end.
The carcasses are often found with genitals and portions of the head removed. To baffled investigators, the method of butchering is as shocking as the target of this killing spree. Crime scene evidence, some believe, indicates that the same person or thing has been responsible for the mutilations since they began in 1967.
The bottom line is that there are very serious mutilations that are done in ways that animals can't do it. The normal human that went out with a knife couldn't do it. You can see where they've actually cut between the cells with something like a laser. How do you do that in the field? Well, I've heard people say now, well, there are field laser devices you could go do that with. Not 20 and 30 years ago.
The bizarre killings have nearly bankrupted some valley ranchers. Sheriff's departments have been unable even to identify a suspect.
From some of the interviews I've been able to conduct, it's just a phenomenal amount of animal mutilations that are going on in this area, and the outside world just doesn't seem to understand or know about it.
I know of no other place that has the amount of cases documented from a single geographic region. Most of the cases are never heard of. They never are reported to law enforcement. They are never covered by the media. The rancher just picks it up in his truck, takes it to his bone pile, and out of sight, out of mind. And oftentimes the rancher just tell me, hey, I don't want to talk about it.
Chris O'Brien has documented nearly 100 mutilations in the San Luis Valley. In the process, he has developed a theory that he believes might explain the bizarre phenomenon.
The San Luis Valley is the only pristine environment left in North America. There's no air pollution, water pollution, any kind of pollution source here. Maybe the reason why we have so many animal deaths is because whoever or whatever is testing the animals may be testing the environment. And what a better place to have a control group for your baseline data to compare your other cases against.
Chris O'Brien and Ken Storch continue their investigations, sharing intelligence, crime scene evidence, and conspiracy theories. So far, they have been unable to prove any connection between the UFO sightings and cattle mutilations. But they chase down every lead, hoping to find the one piece of information that might break the case.
I'm really surprised at the lack of attention this particular mystery has garnered, not only by science and law enforcement, but by the media.
You know, there's this giggle factor when you bring up UFO, when you bring up aerial phenomena, and especially when you try to extrapolate that or bring it into the mainstream science world, if you will. It's just not something that's readily accepted as a legitimate field of study, and that's what we're trying to do, is bring legitimacy to it.
Who or what is responsible for the sensational UFOs and the horrific cattle mutilations in the San Luis Valley? And is there an alien connection?
If it was something I couldn't explain, I probably would be the first person to admit, whoa, something unusual is going on here. But there, you know, we have a saying in the veterinary world, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And we also say don't look for zebras, meaning don't look for the unusual.
After reviewing Chris O'Brien's videotaped evidence, veterinarian Kathy Crichton believes that the explanation for the animal mutilations lies no further than this world.
The most compelling evidence that it's human activity is perhaps the fact that there is no evidence that it's not. When people first want to jump at an easy explanation and say, oh, this is aliens, I think it goes a lot deeper. People are capable, unfortunately, of some pretty horrific crimes, crimes against each other. And coming down a step from that, they're very capable of doing it to animals, too.
Dr. Crichton is not alone in her skepticism about alien intervention in the valley. Others dismiss the supposed connection between slaughtered livestock and UFO sightings in the area.
This is just it's a kind of a mass hysteria sort of a thing. People get excited about a certain region being supposedly mysterious, and all kinds of claims are made, and maybe some films are made, but it's difficult to know. When something is a little dot on a video, you really can't say what it is.
Even UFO researchers acknowledge that many of the alleged sightings probably have terrestrial origins.
It's complicated in that a lot of military operations also take place in this valley, and separating the two is very difficult because some of the technology used by the military is very futuristic and very modern and can be misidentified as a UFO. But something needs to be done to stop the mutilations and find the culprit that's doing it.
Every year throughout the world, sightings of unidentified flying objects are reported by thousands of people. Very few claims, it seems, are ever made by commercial airline pilots. Captain Neil Daniels, however, is an exception to this rule. On March 12, 1977, United Airlines Flight 94 from San Francisco to Boston was suddenly diverted over New York State. The pilot, Captain Daniels, claims his jet was being controlled for a time by an unknown object.
We were flying Flight 94 just a few miles south of Syracuse, New York. The co-pilot was flying the airplane. He was using his autopilot, which is connected to the captain's compass. The compass part itself is out in the left wingtip of the aircraft.
According to Captain Neil Daniels, the airplane started to turn approximately 15 degrees to the left, all by itself, without any direction from Captain Daniels or his co-pilot. The DC-10, with 200 passengers at 37,000 feet, had changed course.
Instinctively, you look out the left window, and there was what we saw. It was a very, very bright light. The intensity was that of let's say a flash bulb. As we went into this turn, the Boston Air Traffic Control Center said, United 94, what are your intentions? And I think I said, well, we don't know exactly, but we'll let you know when we find it out.
Captain Daniels says he and his crew watched the intense light for 3 minutes as the light pulled the plane towards it. Daniels claims the passengers were unaware of any of these events.
When I first saw it, it was forward of the wing. Hard to tell exactly how far out it was, but it was very, very brilliant, whatever. I watched it disappear back over the wingtip and back into the 8 o'clock position and accelerate at a very rapid rate. It was zip and gone, just like that.
Captain Daniels radioed air control. He wanted to know if there was any traffic to the left of Flight 94. He was told there was nothing appearing on radar. The bright light and the source of the magnetic interference to the aircraft navigational system was a mystery.
Flight engineer went back to his seat and he said, I don't know if I'm going to tell anybody anything about this at all. I'm not going to say anything. We're due to come back early, so I didn't want to get involved with the military or anybody like that on all-night questioning and answers and that type of thing. So we opted not to report it when we got in.
Captain Daniels was haunted by memories of the incident, but continued to keep it a secret. 6 months later, however, he decided to tell his boss what had happened.
So I told him, I said, this happened last spring, that I had a sighting. And his reaction was, I'm sorry to hear that. I said, why? He said, well, bad things happen to people that have had sightings like this. And I thought to myself, what? So I shut up and I never said a word about it ever again. For about 7 years.
Neil Daniels retired in 1980 and only then felt comfortable enough to discuss the incident. He says commercial airline pilots who reveal their UFO sightings pay a high price for speaking out. Daniels is still unable to explain the source of the bright light, but remains convinced about what he and his crew witnessed. Since the incident, Neil Daniels is the only one who has been willing to tell his story. Today, his flight engineer is a commercial airline pilot, and the co-pilot is now retired. Both have refused to come forward.
I've been in contact with these two gentlemen. I can't give you their names. They don't want to be known. And I've talked to them about it, and they said, just disregard. I don't want to discuss it. I'm the little short guy here in the middle. And this was my co-pilot.
Captain Daniels, a veteran of dozens of bombing raids during World War II, is now retired. He wants to go on record while he is still alive, in hopes that it might encourage other pilots to come forward. 22 years after his encounter, he still believes there are things going on in the skies beyond our understanding.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about flying was, in the winter months, was to take off and head out of the East Coast in the evening. And we'd get away from the cities and look out at the dark and look up, right up there, and there was Orion. And there was his dog star right there. Gemini, the twins up here. We are a tiny, tiny speck in the Milky Way, which opens up my mind to accepting the possibility of almost anything.
In 1977, United Airlines Flight 94 supposedly had an encounter with a UFO. Captain Neil Daniels, the pilot, claims the plane's navigational equipment was disrupted by a brilliant light, which sent it off course. Fearing for his job, Captain Daniels did not come forward with his story until his retirement in 1980. 4 years later, research scientist Richard Haynes heard about the DC-10 case from other UFO investigators and contacted Neil Daniels. Haynes has researched over 3,000 cases of UFO incidents involving aircraft. He believes the pilot is a credible witness.
I've come to realize how experienced he is. When this event occurred, he was in a position to evaluate what it might be, and yet he couldn't. And that's another reason I got involved.
Unlike UFO sightings based solely on eyewitness reports, Haynes believes the Flight 94 incident is especially difficult to discount.
The Neil Daniels case is a very significant case because it involves multiple eyewitnesses in the cockpit. It involves electromagnetic effects on board the aircraft, which have immediate implications for air safety. And it involves an allegedly independent object nearby the aircraft, which seemed to cause the changes in the cockpit instruments.
Over the years, as compelling evidence of UFO activity across the country continued to mount, Richard Haynes and other UFO investigators urged the mainstream scientific community to take a serious look at cases like Flight 94. Finally, in late 1997, philanthropist Lawrence Rockefeller hosted a gathering at his family's New York estate of leading scientists and UFO investigators to examine evidence from some of the best documented UFO cases. One of the cases reviewed by the committee was Captain Neil Daniels' alleged encounter. Richard Haynes was the UFO investigator who presented the case.
We were not challenged to justify UFOs or to prove the existence of UFOs, but to present physical evidence that we felt was credible and backed up by some scientific and technological data. And the review panel's objective was to help us refine our approach and methodology.
A panel of 18 experts, physicists, aerospace engineers, astronomers, and planetary scientists reviewed the material presented. They quickly learned, however, that as with the age-old question of the existence of God, the existence of UFOs was equally hard to examine.
We were all very, very open-minded. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. But also, we weren't believers. We were basically there to say, show me.
Richard Haynes told the panel that the inexplicable connection between the brilliant light and the plane's performance made this case especially believable.
This is important because I made it very clear at that meeting in New York that as soon as the object went away, all the compasses immediately came back to normal. We call this a transient effect.
Members of the review panel wanted to know if the data in this case had been retested under similar conditions. They soon discovered that the scientific method was almost impossible to apply in the cases of UFOs.
It's very clear for many hundreds of thousands of sightings now that these are transient effects that cannot be reproduced. If they could, science would be looking at them. And if a phenomenon will not repeat itself, how can they do that?
Are the claims of UFO investigators credible? In the absence of established methods and language for inquiry, the scientists who attended the Rockefeller Conference soon realized the difficulty of answering this question.
Often in science we have exactly this problem of separating truth from wishful thinking or from misinterpretations.
Unable to replicate any of the events presented, the scientists were forced to dismiss even the mysterious story of Flight 94.
My feeling in that case, the objective evidence was weak. The plane changed direction while the pilot changed the direction of the airplane. So it was nothing there that really struck me as any evidence for anything really weird happening.
After reviewing the facts, the scientists were convinced that none of the events was supernatural. They realized, however, that the public still needed some rational explanations. Dr. von Eschelman, co-chair of the review panel, attributes certain UFO sightings to natural phenomena.
It's a new area of study where we find that there is electrical activity above clouds. It goes by interesting names like sprites, very picturesque kind of thing. Electrical discharges that go from the top of a thundercloud up into the lower ionosphere.
In the summer of 1998, the Journal of Scientific Exploration published the findings of the Rockefeller Conference. The report, which neither acknowledged nor discounted the significance of the events presented, received widespread publicity. As a result, many of the scientists on the panel resented the insinuation that they endorsed extraterrestrial causes.
We were trying to be careful in our report to say that, yes, there are some rare phenomena that are natural and maybe worth investigating, but do not represent extraterrestrial activity. I think the media took the wrong spin on that.
In the report, the review panel did recommend ongoing cooperation between the scientific and UFO community, but they refused to acknowledge a paranormal connection to United Flight 94 or any of the 20 cases they examined.
The issue about extraterrestrials, I think, is so charged with people's beliefs, it may be very difficult ever to get at any truth. I certainly believe that there ought to be a place that people who witness rare phenomena can report their findings and some way of collating this. There are a lot of things that happen in the world that we don't really understand yet, and may not have anything to do whatever with respect to extraterrestrials.
There are interesting questions in much of the data that was presented to us. It did not convince me that anything extraordinary was happening, but it's interesting, but not likely to be little green men.
Southern Arizona, the best location to view the heavens in the continental United States. To stargazers, this is Mecca. Throughout history, there have been many unidentified flying objects observed and recorded in this area. Here near Tucson, astronomers share the same unencumbered view of the sky with self-described ufologists. There are hundreds of observatory domes surrounding the city, including one built by the Roman Catholic Church. Father Chris Corbally is an astronomer and the vice director of the Vatican Research Group. He supervised the construction of the observatory, which was completed in 1993. Since then, he and a small group of Jesuit priests operate a multi-million-dollar telescope high atop Mount Graham.
We are carrying on serious scientific study in a wonderful environment. This is very much
on the continental United States, a center of astronomy. We have the desert, so giving dryness and clear skies, and then we have these mountains, which we can poke into the good, clear, stable air, and so get excellent imaging.
Corbally has devoted his life to cosmology. He spends much of his time examining the data gathered by the telescope at the University of Arizona, which shares the telescope with the Vatican. At the observatory entrance, a plaque inscribed in Latin commemorates the observatory on Mount Graham. Corbally wears garments of both science and faith and is not surprised by the Vatican's interest in astronomy.
Other people know it's an unusual idea, and yet we have an over 400-year history of the Church's active involvement in science. Initially, it started for a practical reason, for reforming the calendar, which was getting out of step with the seasons. And then it continued, I think, simply because this was a wonderful way to have a presence in science and show the Church's regard for science.
In 1616, the Roman Catholic Church demanded that Galileo stop teaching his sun-centered universe theory. In light of Rome's history of antagonism toward scientific discovery, Father Chris says the Vatican has altered its views on the role science can play in understanding the universe.
The Vatican asked me to do science and let them know what I find. I follow the precepts and the methods of science when I do science. When I do theology and reflect on my faith, then I follow the methods of theology. So I can maintain the distinction between the two. So with two avenues that lead to truth, I don't find ultimately there can be conflict.
Corbally is excited about scientific breakthroughs that can be made by this 72-inch lens, known as the Pope scope. As for the possibilities of finding extraterrestrial life, he is cautiously optimistic.
My personal hopes are high. My science always puts a control on that, because clearly from the scientific point of view, we have not yet found another Earth-like planet. Like anyone, I've seen strange lights in the sky. And yet the extraterrestrial intelligence explanation is always going to be the most remote one. Interesting, maybe, but no evidence as yet.
Some members of the UFO community believe that the presence of the Vatican Observatory suggests that the Church is looking for extraterrestrial life. Father Corbally denies this assumption.
The reason for this telescope is to do science, not to find ET at the end of it. But through doing science, we build up our understanding of the universe, and so this will help to build up the picture in which life, at least our own life on Earth, has formed. But I don't think we're going to see ET waving at us actually through this telescope.
The Vatican Observatory is part of a long legacy of scientific and religious study in southern Arizona. Less than 100 miles from Mount Graham, the Casa Grande ruins are a testimonial of early man's desire to understand the heavens. 2,000 years ago, some believe an advanced civilization called the Hohokam built an observatory here and manned it with priests and shaman.
The Hohokam site here was very likely not just an observatory, but at some point in the past there must have been some sort of a contact in this site which would have established itself in the eyes of the Hohokam and the ancient peoples as a sacred site. A link to the stars was probably at this place where you see behind me.
Father Chris attributes some of the sightings by ancient man in this area to natural phenomena.
The Native Americans that were here from long ago and that have certainly looked at the stars and understood them. The Crab Nebula, now that exploded in the year 1054. And from pictographs on rocks might well have been seen and recorded in that way by Native Americans in the locality around here.
In the shadow of the Pope scope, the UFO community conducts a different type of stargazing. They claim sightings are still occurring in this hotspot and suspect it's one of the reasons the Vatican chose to build an observatory here.
The observatory that the Catholic Church has established just a few miles from here, and the observatory of the Casa Grande ruins, and the pictographs that we have here, I think there's a spiritual connection. Those of us in the UFO community realize that this area is special. Obviously, prehistoric man felt it was special because they felt compelled to leave behind their mark. I don't think that anybody that's in tune with the planet can come to a location like this and not feel the magic.
This area is amazing in its links in the distant past to the sky, and that's what I suggest this is again in the past. This is a place where you come back to be one with the earth, but you also come back to be one with Father's sky. Ultimately, I think what we're all trying to do is to return to the heavens, to return to the place where we were born.
Scientific and technological advances are expanding our knowledge of the universe. Will this someday bring us closer to the discovery of alien life forms?
I think it's a very good thing that the Vatican and anyone else is open to the possibility. It wasn't that many years ago that people didn't even believe that organic material even came from outer space. That, I still say, is a long step from finding life forms elsewhere. I believe they're out there. I just don't think we're going to make contact.
A good scientist has to be a person of faith. Why? Because we're dealing with, in this case, UFOs, a phenomenon which I've never seen. I believe in God, and I believe that He created life on this planet, and I believe He created life on other planets, and that they have space programs, just like we do, and they've gotten here first.
Until contact is made, if ever, the Vatican Observatory, along with the UFO community, will keep on gazing at the wide western skies.
If there is life, then it will be very much part of God's creation. I don't find creation evil, I find creation good. So we're taking part in the Creator who found everything, at each day in Genesis, at the end of each day, and the stage was reached, and God saw it was good. We're taking part in that.
In mankind's quest to understand the cosmos, lines between science and faith have blurred. Since the dawn of the space age, we have been forced to consider the question, is there life out there? As our ability to reach into space expands, the answer to this question and how it will affect us looms large in the future.